The second book of Samuel. There is a plausible and pleasant theory, though one not universally accepted, that the nucleus of the second book of Samuel is a court history of Dawood, written by some noblemen immediately conversant with the events of Dawood's reign. In any event, second Shemuel would seem to have been the first of the biblical books written in anything like its present form, and to have started the school of historical writing that continued until the 1st century BCE. It was the natural mode of procedure, if one stops to think of it, for historians to begin with the period that they knew most about and work gradually backward through the ever-dimming past until they should reach the creation as their final terminus. The treatment of the general figure Dawood is obviously somewhat apologetic, yet without any such idealization as moderns, living in a so-called scientific age, are wont to bestow upon their national heroes. The unknown Jewish writers of the 10th century BCE were better historians than the popular Parson Weems of the 19th century of the Common Era. It should be remembered, however, that like all the rest of these books, 2 Samuel was extensively revised in later centuries. For example, the prophet Nathan, in the account of Bathsheba incident and the rebuke of Dawood by the prophet Nathan, one can clearly see the hand of the Deuteronomist at work. Nevertheless, out of the whole narrative, King Dawood, with his most human inconsistencies, emerges as one of the essential real figures in ancient history. We also find that a lot of these things said bad about these prophetic figures and messiahs in the Bible are later additions to the story. The earlier ones don't have that. So why did they do that? The lament of Dawood. Now it came to pass after the death of Shaul, when Dawood had abode 2 days in Ziklag, it had come to pass on the 3rd day that, behold, a man came out of the camp of Shaul with his clothes rent, and earth upon his head. And so it was, when he came to Dawood, that he fell to the earth and did obeisance. And Dawood said unto him, From whence comest thou? And he said unto him, Out of the camp of Yishrael am I escaped. And Dawood said unto him, How went the matter? I pray thee, tell me. And he answered, that the people fled from the battle, and many of the people also are fallen and dead. And Shaul and Jonathan, his son, are dead also. I'm not sure if there's a tau or a theth in there, but... And Dawood said unto the young man that told him, How knowest thou that Shaul and Jonathan his son be dead? And the young man that told him said, As I happened by chance upon the mount Gilboa, behold, Shaul leaned upon a spear, and lo, the chariots and horsemen followed hard after him. And when he looked behind him, he saw me and called unto me, and I answered, Here am I. And he that said unto me, Who art thou? And I answered him, I am an Amalekite. Amalekim? Is that how you say it? And he said unto me again, Stand, I pray thee, upon me, and slay me, for anguish is come upon me, because my life is yet whole in me. So I stood upon him and slew him, because I was sure that he could not live after that he was fallen. And I took the crown that was upon his head, and the bracelet that was on his arm, and have brought them hither unto my Lord. Then Dawood took hold on his clothes and rent them, and likewise all the men that were with him, and they mourned and wept, and fasted until even, for Shaul and for Jonathan his son, and for the people of God as noun and verb, and for the house of Yisrael, because they were fallen by the sword. And Dawood said unto the young man that told him, Whence art thou? And he answered, I am the son of a stranger, and Amalekim. And Dawood said unto him, How wast thou not afraid to stretch forth thine hand to destroy? God as a noun and verbs, Messiah. And Dawood called one of the young men and said, Go near and fall upon him. And he smote him that he died. And Dawood said unto him, Thy blood be upon thy head, for thy mouth hath testified against thee, saying, I have slain God as a noun and verbs anointed. And Dawood lamented with this lamentation over Shaul and over Jonathan his son. Also he bade them to teach the children of Judah the use of the bow. Behold, it is written in the book of Yashar. What is there, like 74 books that the Bible says could have been included in the Bible? And we find out that some of these books were bigger than the Bible by themselves. At least what we have of the Persian text and stuff that we've been referring to. And then were the texts that the Bible was compiled out of, outside of that. So the beauty of Yisrael is slain upon thy high places. How are the mighty fallen? Tell it not in Gath. Publish it not in the streets of Ascalon, lest the daughters of the Palestinian rejoice, lest the daughters of the uncircumcised triumph. Ye mountains of Gilboa, let there be no dew, neither let there be rain upon you, nor fields of offerings. For there the shield of the mighty is vilely cast away, the shield of Shaul, as though he had not been anointed with oil. And, that's what Messiah means, is from the blood of the slain, from the fat of the mighty, the bow of Jonathan turned not back, and the sword of Shaul returned not empty. Shaul and Jonathan were lovely and pleasant in their lives, and in their death they were not divided. They were swifter than eagles, they were stronger than lions. Ye daughters of Yisrael, weep over Shaul, who clothed you in scarlet with other delights, who put ornaments of gold upon your apparel. How are the mighty fallen in the midst of the battle? O Jonathan, thou wast slain in thine high places. I am distressed for thee. My brother Jonathan, very pleasant hast thou been unto me. Thy love to me was wonderful, passing the love of women. How are the mighty fallen, and the weapons of war perished? The triumph of Dawood. And it came to pass after this that Dawood inquired of God as noun and verb, saying, Shall I go up into any of the cities of Judah? And God as a noun and verb said unto him, Go up. And Dawood said, Whither shall I go up? And he said, Unto Hebron. So Dawood went up thither, and his two wives also, Ahinoam, the Jezreelima, and Abigail, Nabal's wife, the Carmelim, and his men that were with him did Dawood bring up, every man with his household, and they dwelt in the cities of Hebron. Is it Hebron, actually? I don't know. I think think there's a wow in there. But anyways, whether there is or not. And the men of Yehuda came, and there they anointed Dawood king over the house of Yehuda. And they told Dawood that the men of Yabash Gilead, were they that buried Shaul. And Dawood sent messengers unto the men of Yabesh Gilead, and said unto them, Blessed be ye of God as noun and verb, that have showed this kindness unto your Lord, even unto Shaul, and have buried him. And now God as noun and verb show kindness and truth unto you, and I also will requite you with this kindness, because ye have done this thing. Therefore, now let your hands be strengthened, and be ye valiant. For your master Shaul is dead, and also the house of Yehuda have anointed me king over them. And, typically religious communities do not give suicides honorable burials. Islam and most forms of Judaism would agree with that. In Christianity, yeah, they would bury them somewhere separate. But Abner, the son of Ner, captain of Shaul's host, took Ishbosheth, the son of Shaul, and brought him over to Mahanaim, and made him king over Gilead, and over the Asherim, and over Yazrael. I don't know if there's an E in there, a U in there. And over Ephraim, over Benjamin, and over all Yisrael. It's either Yesh or Ash. Whatever. Ishbosheth, Shaul's son, was 40 years old when he began to reign over Yisrael, and reigned 2 years. But the house of Yehuda followed Dawood. And the time that Dawood was king in Hebron over the house of Yehuda was 7 years and 6 months. And Abner, the son of Ner, and the servants of Ishbosheth, the son of Shaul, went out from Mahanaim to Gibeon. And Joab, the son of Zeruiah, and the servants of Dawood went out and met together by the pool of Gibeon. And they sat down, the one on the one side of the pool, and the other on the other side of the pool. And Abner said unto Joab, Let the young men now arise and play before us. And Joab said, Let them arise. And there arose and went over by number 12 of the Benjamin, which pertained to Ishbosheth, the son of Shaul, and 12 of the servants of Dawood, and they caught every one of his fellow by the head, and thrust his sword in the fellow's side, so that they fell down together. Wherefore that place was called Helkath Hazurim, which is in Gibeon. And there was a very sore battle that day, and Abner was beaten, and the men of Yisrael before the servants of Dawood, and there were 3 sons of Zeruiah there, Joab, and Abishai, and Asahel. And Asahel was as light of foot as a wild roe. And Asahel pursued after Abner, and in going he turned not to the right hand nor to the left from following Abner. Then Abner looked behind him and said, Art thou Asahel? And he answered him, I am. And Abner said to him, Turn thee aside to thy right hand or to thy left, and lay hold on one of the young men, and take thee his armor. But Asahel would not turn aside from following of him. And Abner said again to Asahel, Turn thee aside from following me, wherefore should I smite thee to the ground? How then should I hold up my face to Joab thy brother? Howbeit he refused to turn aside, wherefore Abner, with the hinder end of the spear, smote him under the fifth rib, that the spear came out behind him, and he fell down there and died in the same place. And it came to pass that as many as came to the place where Asahel fell down and died stood still. Joab also and Abishai pursued after Abner, and the sun went down when they were come to the hill of Emma, that lieth before Gibeah, by the way of the wilderness of Gibeon. And the children of Benjamin gathered themselves together after Abner, and became one troop, and stood on the top of the hill. Then Abner called to Joab, and said, Shall the sword devour forever? Knowest thou not that it will be bitterness in the latter end? How long shall it be then, ere thou bid the people return from following their brethren? And Joab said, As God liveth, unless thou hadst spoken, surely then in the morning the people had gone up, every one from following his brother. So Joab blew a trumpet, and all the people stood still and pursued after Yishrael no more. Neither fought they any more, and Abner and his men walked all that night through the plain and passed over Jordan, and went through all Bithron, and they came to Mahanaim. And Joab returned from following Abner, and when he had gathered all the people together, there lacked of Dawood's servants 19 men and Asahel, but the servants of Dawood had smitten of Benjamin and of Abner's men, so that 360 men died. And they took up Asahel and buried him in the sepulchre of his father, which was in Beit Lechem. And Joab and his men went all night, and they came to Hebron at the break of day. Now there was long war between the house of Shaul and the house of Dawood, but Dawood waxed stronger and stronger, and the house of Shaul waxed weaker and weaker. And it came to pass, while there was war between the house of Shaul and the house of Dawood, that Abner made himself strong for the house of Shaul. And Shaul had a concubine, whose name was Rizpah, the daughter of And Ishbosheth said to Abner, Wherefore hast thou gone into my father's concubine? Meaning wife, if we look at how we've seen this before. Then was Abner very wroth for the words of Ishbosheth, and said, Am I a dog's head, which against Yehuda do show kindness this day unto the house of Shaul thy father, to his brethren and to his friends, and have not delivered thee into the hand of Dawood, that thou chargest me today with a fault concerning this woman? So do God to Abner, and more also, except as God as a noun and verb hath sworn to Dawood, even so do I to him, to translate the kingdom from the house of Shaul, to set up the throne of Dawood over Yishrael, and over Yehuda, from Dan even to Beersheba. And he could not answer Abner a word again, because he feared him. And Abner sent messengers to Dawood on his behalf, saying, Who is the land? Saying also, Make thy league with me, and behold, my hand shall be with thee, to bring about all Yishrael unto thee. And he said, Well, I will make a league with thee, but one thing I require of thee, that is, thou shalt not see my face, except thou first bring Michal, Shaul's daughter, when thou comest to see my face. And Dawood sent messengers to Ishbosheth, Shaul's son, saying, Deliver me my wife from Michal, which I espoused to me for 100 foreskins of the Palestine, the Palestiniim. And Ishbosheth sent and took from her husband, even from Phaltiel, the son of Laish, and her husband went with her, along weeping behind her to Bahurim. Then said Abner unto him, Go, return. And he returned. And Abner had communicated with the elders of Yisrael, saying, Ye sought for Dawood in times past to be king over you. Now then do it, for God as a noun and verb hath spoken of Dawood, saying, By the hand of my servant Dawood will I save my people Yisrael out of the hand of the Palestiniim, and out of the hand of all their enemies. And Abner also spoke in the ears of Benjamin, and Abner also went to speak in the ears of Dawood in Hebron, all that seemed good to Yisrael, and that seemed good to the whole house of Benjamin. So Abner came to Dawood to Hebron, and 20 men with him. And Dawood made Abner and the men that were with him a feast. And Abner said unto Dawood, I will arise and go, and will gather all Yisrael unto my lord the king, that they may make a league with thee, and that thou mayest reign over all that thine heart desireth. And Dawood sent Abner away, and he went in peace. And behold, the servants of Dawood and Joab came from pursuing a troop, and brought in a great spoil with them. But Abner was not with Dawood in Hebron, for he had sent him away, and he was gone in peace. When Joab and all the host that was with him were come, they told Joab, saying, Abner the son of Ner came to the king, and he hath sent them away, and he is gone in peace. It reminds me of the Egyptian word for like a heart or something. Then Joab came to the king, and I said, What hast thou done? Behold, Abner came unto thee. Why is it that thou hast sent him away? And he is quite gone. Thou knowest Abner the son of Ner, that he came to deceive thee, and to know thy going out and thy coming in, and to know all that thou doest. And when Joab was come out from Dawood, he sent messengers after Abner, which brought him again from the well of Sirah. But Dawood knew it not. And when Abner was returned to Hebron, Joab took him aside in the gate to speak with him quietly, and smote him there under the 5th rib, that he died for the blood of Asahel his brother. And afterward, when Dawood heard it, he said, I and my kingdom are guiltless before God as a noun and verb forever, from the blood of Abner the son of Ner, that it rest on the head of Joab and on all his father's house, and let there not fail from the house of Joab one that hath an issue, or that is a leper, or that leaneth on a staff, or that falleth on the sword, or that lacketh bread. So Joab and Abishai his brother slew Abner, because he had slain their brother Asahel at Gibeon in the battle. And Dawood said unto Joab and all the people that were with him, Rend your clothes, and gird you with sackcloth, and mourn before Abner. And King Dawood himself followed the bier, and they buried Abner in Hebron. And the king lifted up his voice, and wept at the grave of Abner. And all the people wept, and the king lamented over Abner, and said, died Abner, as a fool dieth. Thy hands were not bound, nor thy feet put into fetters. As a man falleth before wicked men, so fellest thou. And the sons of Rimmon, the Berothim, and Rechab, the Berothim, Rechab, and is it Bana? Because that double A is often for a ah, but Bana went and came about the heat of the day to the house of Ishbosheth, who lay on a bed at noon, and they came thither into the midst of the house as though they would have fetched wheat, and they smote him under the fifth rib, and Rechab and Bana his brother escaped, for when they came into the house he lay on his bed in his bedchamber, and they smote him and slew him and beheaded him, and took his head and got them away through the plain all night, and they brought the head of Ishbosheth unto Dawood to Hebron, and said to the king, Behold the head of Ishbosheth, the son of Shaul, thine enemy, which sought thy life, and God is noun and verb, hath avenged my lord the king to this day of Shaul and of his seed. And Dawood answered Rechab and Bana his brother, the sons of Rimmon, the Beerothim, and he said unto them, As God is noun and verb liveth, who hath redeemed my soul out of all adversity. When one told me, saying, Behold, Shaul is dead, thinking to have brought good tidings, I took hold of him, and slew him in Ziklag, who thought that I would have given him a reward for his tidings. How much more, when wicked men have slain a righteous person in his own house, upon his bed, shall I not therefore now require his blood of your hand, and take you away from the earth? And Dawood commanded his young men, and they slew them, and cut off their hands and their feet, and hanged them up over the pool in Hebron. But they took the head of Ishbosheth, and buried it in the sepulchre of Abner in Hebron. And the Philistines came up yet again, and spread themselves in the valley of Rephaim. And when Dawood inquired of God as noun and verb, he said, Thou shalt not go up, but fetch a compass behind them, and come upon them over against the mulberry trees. And let it be, when thou hearest the sound of a going in the tops of the mulberry trees, that then thou shalt bestir thyself, for then shall God as noun and verb go out before thee to smite the host of the Philistines. And Dawood did so, as God as noun and verb had commanded him, and smote the Philistines from Geba until thou come to Gazer. Again Dawood gathered together all the chosen men of Yisrael, 30,000, and Dawood arose and went with all the people that were with him from the Bala of Yehuda, to bring up from thence the ark of God as noun and verb, whose name is called by the name of God as noun and verb of host, Yahweh Tzbaot, that dwelleth between the cherubim, and set the ark of God upon a new cart, and brought it out of the house of Abinadab that was in Gibeah, and Uzzah, probably Azza or something, and Ahio, the sons of Abinadab, drove the new cart, and they brought it out of the house of Abinadab, which was at Gibeah, accompanying the ark of God. And Ahio went before the ark, and Dawood and all the house of Israel played before God as noun and verb on all manner of instruments made of fir wood, even on harps and on psalteries, and on timbrels, and on cornets, and on cymbals. And Dawood danced before God as a noun and verb with all his might, and Dawood was girded with the linen ephod. So Dawood and all the house of Yisrael brought up the ark of God as noun and verb with shouting, and with the sound of the trumpet. And as the ark of God as noun and verb came in the city of Dawood, Michal, Shaul's daughter, looked through a window and saw King Dawood leaping and dancing before God as noun and verb, and she despised him in her heart. The Grammarium Verum entity, Klepoth, kind of relates to this, doesn't it? And they brought in the ark of God as noun and verb, and set it in his place in the midst of the tabernacle that Dawood had pitched for it. And Dawood offered burnt offerings and peace offerings before God as a noun and verb. And as soon as Dawood made an end of offering burnt offerings and peace offerings, he blessed the people in the name of God as a noun and verb of hosts. And he dealt among all the people, even among the whole multitude of Yisrael, as well to the women as men, to every one a cake of bread, and a good piece of flesh, and a flagon of wine, so that the people departed every one to his house. Is music and drugs really the best way to celebrate the return of sacred objects? Then Dawood returned to bless his household, and Michal, the daughter of Shaul, came out to meet Dawood and said, "How glorious was the king of Yisrael today, who uncovered himself today in the eyes of the handmaids of his servants, as one of the vain fellows shamelessly uncovereth himself." And Dawood said unto Michal, or is it Michal? It was before God as noun and verb, which chose me before thy father and before all his house to appoint me ruler over the people of God as a noun and verb, over Yisrael. Therefore will I play before God as noun and verb, and I will yet be more vile than thus, and will be